Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into some really interesting source material. It gives a pretty raw look at modern relationships.
Yeah, especially where things go wrong. We're focusing on conflict and, specifically this accountability gap.
Exactly. It's not really about healthy communication techniques this time. It's more about where people place the blame versus where responsibility might actually lie.
And that gap, well, it can be huge. We've got court documents, social media commentary, all sorts of things here.
Domestic disputes, arguments about money.
Right. And our mission, basically, is to sift through all these stories and try to find the patterns. Where does personal accountability break down? Or maybe where is it avoided?
We're looking for that common thread in how people justify their actions, maybe.
Precisely, that self-justification angle. And to kick things off, we absolutely have to start with maybe the most dramatic example we found.
Oh, yeah. The woman who sued her pastor because her own affair led to her divorce.
It sounds completely unbelievable, doesn't it? But It's real. Mrs. McDonald, she's a teacher. She sued Pastor Hall for $25,000.
25 grand. For what exactly?
Well, she claimed it was for 6 months of rent and 6 months of therapy because her husband divorced her after finding out she'd been unfaithful.
Okay, wait. Her argument was that the pastor was responsible.
Essentially, yes. She said she confessed the affair to Pastor Hall, in confidence, said she was seeking emotional help, couldn't afford a therapist.
Right. A confidential setting, usually.
And she argued that he disclosed it, and that disclosure directly caused her divorce and all the financial hardship that followed.
Wow. Okay. So she cheats, but the pastor revealing it, or allegedly revealing it, is the reason she needs $25,000. The mental gymnastics there.
That's exactly the phrase used in the commentary we saw. So Pastor Hall's side.
Yeah.
He confirms she did confide in him.
Okay.
And he confirms he advised her to tell her husband herself. He thought honesty was, the only way forward. He even gave her a deadline.
He gave her time. How long?
A month. He told her, you need to tell him within a month, believing that was the path to, repair or at least self-forgiveness.
That sounds, pretty standard advice from a pastor or counselor, honestly.
It really does. But here's where it gets messy. She didn't tell her husband. And then, about 6 weeks later, Pastor Hall bumps into Mr. McDonald at the gym. Just a chance encounter.
Okay. So did the pastor just blurt it out?
Not according to his testimony. He says he made a kind of general comment. He was talking about how adversity can make couples stronger.
Adversity
like sickness or bankruptcy. And then he mentioned adultery, just as one example in a list of general hardships.
So wait, he didn't say, your wife, Mrs. McDonald, confessed adultery to me. He just used the word adultery generally.
Correct. His account. It wasn't a direct disclosure about her specific situation. He used it as a hypothetical example.
But Mrs. McDonald claims that comment is what caused the divorce.
That was her argument.
Okay.
But here's the kicker, the piece that really undermines her entire case. Mr. McDonald testified. He admitted he already suspected his wife was having an affair. And not just recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his suspicions dated back to before the pandemic. He said the pastor's comment, that general word adultery, just sort of triggered him.
Triggered the confrontation he was probably going to have anyway.
Exactly. It pushed him to finally confront her, but the knowledge, or at least the strong suspicion, was already there. The foundation was already cracked, so to speak.
So the pastor wasn't the source of the information, just maybe the final catalyst for the conversation.
That's how it seems. The root cause was still the infidelity itself.
Makes sense. So what did the judge say? Did she get the $25,000?
Nope. Judge denied the whole claim, said flat out that Mrs. McDonald was responsible for her own actions and the consequences that followed, period.
And the commentary around this? What did people say?
Pretty much what you'd expect. Lots of commentary suggesting she wasn't really upset about a breach of confidence.
But more upset about getting caught.
Exactly. Upset she got caught and was facing the music. People called it deflection, avoiding accountability. Those mental gymnastics, again, just trying to paint herself as a victim.
It's fascinating the lengths people go to. A whole lawsuit just to avoid saying, my choices led to this outcome.
And that core idea, the desperate effort to deflect blame, to find anyone else responsible, that really sets the stage for the other conflicts we saw in the source material. It's not always a courtroom drama.
Right. Sometimes it's much more domestic, like the arguments about chores and expectations.
Exactly. Let's shift gears to that. We saw this anecdote, remember? The husband comes home after what he calls a long, hard week at work.
Yeah, and he has some weekend requests.
He wants a clean house and, quote, delicious home-cooked meals. ready for him.
And his wife's response was memorable.
Oh, sharp. She just shoots back. His mother's going to love having him first.
Oh, yeah, that definitely landed.
And the commentary around that exchange was intense, too. Some called her response inconsiderate, even going so far as real-world villainy.
Villainy. That seems strong for refusing to cook dinner.
Well, it highlights this clash of expectations, right? He feels entitled to comfort and service after his work week. She feels, well, clearly not obligated to provide it on demand like that.
It's like a refusal to engage in what some might see as basic partnership kindness, maybe, or what others see as unfair domestic labor expectations.
It's exactly that tension. The source material commentary even suggested some people, quote, pride themselves on doing absolutely nothing because they have convinced one another doing anything nice is somehow oppressive.
That's a really cynical take, that being nice or doing something for your partner is seen as oppression.
It is cynical, but it captures that feeling of resentment, maybe. Reframing service or sacrifice as losing personal freedom instead of, contributing to the relationship.
And this idea of sacrifice, or the lack of it, connects directly to the arguments about money and commitment we saw.
Absolutely. Big divide there. Is marriage about financial security first and foremost, or is it about love?
We saw both arguments laid out pretty clearly. One perspective was basically, why else get married?
Right. Why else would I tie myself down? Have your children. That view frames marriage almost purely as a transaction. Your labor, your commitment, in exchange for financial stability.
Which is a pretty stark contrast to the other viewpoint.
Completely. The counter-argument was strong. Money shouldn't be the end-all be-all. Marriage has to be built on love, on growth, on genuine commitment.
They even used that example, right? Comparing two potential sons-in-law.
Yeah. The hypothetical father choosing for his daughter, does he pick the guy with $100 million or the guy who loves her with his heart soul?
And the source presenting this argued the choice must be love over money.
It's that classic tension, the romantic ideal versus maybe the pragmatic or even cynical reality of financial leverage in relationships.
And that leverage becomes really concrete when you talk about actual possessions, like that story about the car.
Ah, yes, the dream car versus the land yacht.
The wife wanted the husband to sell his prized possession, his dream car.
Something he clearly valued, had likely worked hard for.
So they could buy this very specific, very expensive vehicle. She wanted a $400,000 land yacht.
And the justification was for family trips. But the commentary really zeroed in on that.
Yeah, the argument was that you don't need a $400,000 vehicle for family trips. There are plenty of other options.
Exactly. So the interpretation in the source was that this wasn't really about the family's need. It was about making him sacrifice something deeply personal to him.
A test of commitment, maybe. Forced financial sacrifice as proof of something. Love. Prioritization.
Perhaps. It led to that really polarizing quote we found in the material.
The one summarizing the perceived difference in sacrifice.
Yeah, and it's a huge generalization, obviously, but it stated, men will sacrifice their happiness for their family. Women will sacrifice their family for their happiness.
Wow. That's blunt. And yeah, definitely a generalization. But you can see how it reflects the tension people feel, whether it's accurate overall or not. That push and pull between self-interest and the family's interest.
Absolutely captures the tension. And when that tension isn't resolved constructively, when there's resentment over sacrifice or expectations, well, it can curdle into something much uglier.
Which brings us to the really harsh language, the actual verbal attacks we saw examples of.
Yeah, moving from like passive refusal or financial demands into just outright contempt.
And some of that dialogue was brutal.
Yeah.
Calling a partner so lazy, saying their existence is worthless.
And that line repeated, you literally do nothing, just complete invalidation.
What struck me was how specific the attacks were, using domestic details as weapons.
Right, not just you're lazy, but specific accusations about parenting, like Lily wore the same clothes as last night, or you feed the kids junk.
It's an attempt to dismantle their whole identity, isn't it? Not just criticize behavior, but attack their role as a parent, as a partner.
Totally. And it seems aimed at maintaining control or superiority, maybe, because in one example, the person being attacked actually asks, do you want some help changing things?
And the accuser just doubles down.
Refuses the help.
Yeah.
Keeps up the criticism, which suggests the goal isn't really to fix the perceived problem. It's about the performance of anger, the assertion of dominance.
Maintaining that position of being the wronged party, maybe.
Could be. And this idea of performing, of maintaining a certain image or identity, that leads into another area we saw. discussions about personal history and choices.
Ah, yeah, that provocative question somebody was asked.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time, would you lower your body count?
Right. And the woman's initial response was defiant. No,
Her justification.
because I'm very happy where I'm at. A statement of current contentment.
But then things shifted, didn't they?
Immediately. Because the person asking then pressed her for the actual number, and she refused to say.
And that refusal was taken as evidence.
Instantly. The questioner concluded right away she's not happy with that. The implication being, if she was truly happy and unashamed, she wouldn't hide the number.
So the public performance of "I'm happy I own my past" kind of crumbled under scrutiny.
Exactly. It highlights that tension between the face we present to the world and maybe the more complex private feelings. The defensiveness undercut the confidence statement.
It really shows how past choices, current happiness, and even just numbers are constantly being judged in these relationship contexts.
Definitely. And speaking of things being judged and causing tension, money and work effort came up again in that brief bit about the wage gap commentary.
Right. We should touch on that carefully. The sources presented the standard statistic or a version of it.
Yeah, the idea that for every dollar a man earns, a woman earns, say, 70 or 75 cents.
And then immediately after presenting that statistic, the source included a comment that was, well, let's call it highly controversial.
Extremely. It was framed as a joke, but it directly linked the wage gap to biology, saying women are, quote, useless 1 week out of the month.
Implying that's why they should only earn 75 cents on the dollar. Just to be clear, we're reporting what was in the source, not endorsing this view at all.
Absolutely not. But the key thing here wasn't the joke itself, however offensive. It was the reaction described in the source material.
What was the reaction?
It mentioned pissed off looks from people hearing it. It showed how incredibly charged these topics are. Fairness, effort, money, gender roles, they're all tangled up.
So even a crude joke taps into those deep underlying resentments and perceives inequalities that fuel conflict.
Precisely. So if we zoom out now, look across everything, the lawsuit, the chores dispute, the dream car, the harsh words, the wage gap comment, what's the pattern?
It really does seem to be this consistent struggle with personal responsibility, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Defining it, accepting it, assigning it, often assigning it anywhere but inward.
People seem willing to go to incredible lengths like suing your pastor or demanding huge financial sacrifices or just tearing down your partner verbally.
Rather than just admitting, okay, maybe my choices played a part in this unhappiness.
Exactly. It's like building and maintaining this facade, as the sources called it. Facade of victimhood, maybe. Anything to avoid introspection or admitting fault.
Like they're performing victimhood for an audience, even if the audience is just themselves sometimes.
And convincing themselves, maybe, that owning up to something or even just doing something selfless for the relationship is somehow oppressive against their own interests.
It's a bleak picture in some ways.
Yeah.
Which leads us to a final thought for you listening to this.
Yeah, something to maybe reflect on. We've seen these dynamics play out very publicly, social media, court cases, you name it.
So the question is, how much of the conflict we see, whether it's online or maybe even closer to home, is genuine relational struggle?
And how much is just performance? The performance needed to keep up that illusion of being the victim, of being wronged.
And maybe, on a personal level, are there any responsibilities you might be projecting onto others in your own life instead of looking inward? Something to think about.